Good day. This is Russell Hawley from the Tate Geological Museum, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the rocks of Casper Mountain. So there is a great source of a wide variety of different rock types, almost literally right in our own backyards, just 10 minutes south of Casper on Casper Mountain. Here I've drawn a diagram. I didn't draw this. This is from Wyoming Roadside Geology. That's the one I drew over there. At any rate, this is aerial view. So each one of these colored areas represents a different type of rock that can be found in a different area of Casper Mountain. Here we are in Casper itself, and this represents the bedrock. So this is the rock that you would find if you were to dig right down through the floor of your house and through the dirt until you hit bedrock. And in Casper, that bedrock consists of this stuff. This is the Cody Shale Formation. And all of these rocks have a story to tell. You can look at the features of these rocks and determine what the environment was like in this part of Wyoming at the time that that rock was being formed. Take shale, for example. It has very, very small grains. It's a sedimentary rock, and the grains are little tiny pieces of silt and clay, much, much smaller than grains of sand. You can hardly see them with your naked eye. Look at that. You still cannot see the individual grains of this shale from where you're sitting. So very, very fine grained. That indicates that this was formed in a slow, quiet, deep ocean, low energy depositional environment where silt and clay grains were just raining out of the ocean above and collecting on the bottom of the sea as mud. Later on, it got buried deeper and deeper and deeper, and then those grains fused together. They solidified, lithified, turned into stone, and we end up with this stuff, the Cody Shale. One way that we know that this formed at the bottom of the sea is that in the Cody Shale you can find fossils. That's what we're looking at right here. This is an ancient saltwater clam called Inoceramus. Look at this, Inoceramus. If you see it again, do you think you're going to recognize it? Good. That means now you know Ceramus like I know Ceramus. Okay, that was a dumb joke, but it'll help you remember the name of this very important ancient clam. So these marine clams show us that near the end of the Cretaceous period, say about 70 million years ago, right where we're sitting, was the bottom of the sea, unless you're watching this podcast from some other state. Even then, it's a good possibility that it was underwater near the end of the Cretaceous. It was a very wet time. Now, as you travel to the south, the road zigzags, and at this point right here, it crosses the Casper Mountain Fault. A fault is a deep vertical or diagonal crack in the earth. And this fault, the Casper Mountain Fault, represents a spot where all of the rocks to the south were being shoved up out of the ground, like God's own core sample. So these should be deep under the ground. The fault represents 1,300 meters of displacement. So these rocks should be over 1 kilometer under the ground. And you could find, for example, this stuff in Casper, but you'd have to dig a hole over 1 kilometer deep to get to it. Fortunately, it's a lot cheaper and safer just to drive south to where it's exposed at the surface, thanks to that Casper Mountain Fault. So as you go around this hairpin turn and you cross that fault, it is like suddenly jumping back in time. One moment you're seeing either 70 million year old shale or 10,000 year old colluvium in the road cuts. But then after you go around that curve, the thing that you're seeing in the road cuts is this: granite, pink Precambrian granite, dating from 2.5 billion years ago. So just by going around that turn, you've jumped back in time over 2 billion years. We use these numbers a lot in geology. We throw around numbers like 2.5 billion very casually. It's easy to lose sight of what a mind-bogglingly huge number that is. If you started counting right now at the rate of one number per second, How long would it take you to count to 2.5 billion? And I know there's some smart aleck out there who's saying it would take 2.5 billion seconds. The real answer, it's a trick question. There aren't enough seconds in a lifetime to count that high. You get up to about 2.3 billion and then you drop dead from old age. And that's how many years this rock has been around. If the vastness of geological time doesn't scare you at least a little bit, you haven't really grasped it. At any rate, the granite, as we discussed in an earlier episode, forms deep underground. It's a intrusive igneous rock which originally crystallized from magma. Continuing up the road, we get to a place right here where the granite is overlain by a layer of this stuff. And so we've got a very different sort of rock appearing in the road cuts as we travel along this stretch right there. And you may be able to tell what this is, even from where you are. Yep, that's right. It's sandstone. And it's a stone made from sand, duh. And these are all grains of what would have originally been loose sand, now lithified, cemented together to form this rock, sandstone. This particular sandstone seems to have formed in an estuarine environment or a river delta. So at the time that this was formed, which is about 400 million years ago, the Casper area would have been a vast, flat, sandy plain with stream channels winding their way across it. And then further still, you get to this area here where the road widens out and there's a parking area there. So you can park your car there, look out over Casper, see the city. If you go at night, you can see the city lights. It's really pretty. The high schoolers like to go up there at night with their girlfriends to hold hands. But if you turn around, turn your back on Casper and look the other way to the south, across the road at the road cut, there you will see this stuff, limestone. And limestone has a story to tell as well. Like shale, it forms underwater and almost always under the sea. One of the most famous examples that's an exception to this rule, limestone that didn't form at the bottom of the sea, is right here in Wyoming. But that, as Rudyard Kipling says, is another story.